Welcome back to my Golf Fantasy Podcast. I'm Ryan, that's Wendell. A lot of things to get to today, including the waste management that happened last weekend and the future weekend of the Pebble Beach Golf Tournament, one of my favorite of the year. But let's talk about waste management. Wendell, what are your thoughts and experiences on the event last weekend?
Yeah, obviously, as we talked about last week, it's an exciting tournament, one on all of our bucket lists. It didn't disappoint this week. There was a lot of controversy with people in the stands and attendance, and there was a lot of excitement too on the course with the players and how they're performing. But I think a few things that kind of stuck out to me were just, a lot when it comes to the disrespect the fans had towards a few players there. You and I discussed briefly, Matsuyama and how, he seemed to get the brunt of it coming down the stretch on Sunday, which was unfortunate. So I think the players, as much fun as this tournament is, as much as they look forward to it, I think they're happy to move on here to Pebble Beach this week into a more PGA Tour-esque environment for sure.
Yeah, I mean, some of the things that Hideki had to deal with on the final day and the last final holes is tough. It's tough for any player. People talking in his backswing or as he's approaching the ball. He had to back off tee shots. He had to back off his putt on 18. And, those types of things, that's just like, it gets you off your game. Yeah, could the Hideki have won this tournament without maybe that crowd environment? Yeah, I think it could have. But we talked about that last week, right? The mental toughness of some of the players and how they have to be mental tougher to thrive in this type of environment. But you don't want to see it come down to like 18th hole bogey because fans are interrupting or distracting players from trying to go and win a tournament, right?
That's it. And I think mentally it really affected him coming down the stretch. There was that one hole again. I can't remember which hole it was. I think it was a par 5 coming down on this in the stretch where, he was off the cart path in a sandy area that had been filled in because carts had driven over it and kind of pushed down the grass. And he didn't even ask for relief. It wasn't the best. I wasn't the worst lie in the sand. It wasn't the best, but I'm sure he would have rather been a club length to the left, in the short rough or fringe somewhere, which I think in a different setting, he probably would have asked for a ruling. And it was very surprising they didn't hear.
Yeah, and it could have been a fan factor, right? He probably doesn't want the fans to get annoyed or upset with the delay, so he just kind of says, "Okay, let me just hit it." You're right. It was a fine lie. He probably didn't think it'd impact him that much. But yeah, any other tournament, is he knowing that the fans are going to be more respectful of the rules? He takes his time and places the ball properly on a drop that should have happened, or is he just thinking, I just want to get the shot and I want to get out of here. I'm leading, I'm winning. I just want to go and finish this and walk off the course. And then unfortunately that didn't happen for him, right? But I mean, it didn't happen for him, but in a sense of, he also had a very good competitor coming down the stretch too, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. I mean, there was a lot of pressure, even aside from that. Again, congrats to Chris Gotterup, second win this year. Definitely down the stretch, he proved he's a guy who I think we might be seeing the star emerging here this year. 2 wins in his last 3 events. Could be a breakout year. So it's gonna be exciting to keep following him, see how he performs. Scotty, obviously, with the opening round +2. I think he just showed us why he's coming into the weekend. I mean, he had a few great rounds and ended up finishing third. He's a leader in the clubhouse there for a few holes too. And even when Scotty doesn't have his best stuff, he's still extremely dangerous on tour. I mean, it's incredible to see what he's doing.
Yeah, Goddard birdieing 5 of the last 6 holes, put the pressure on Hideki. Good for him. Even Thorn Bjornsson, he goes eagle on 15, and unfortunately and he was the leader at the time, right? Minus 17, and then he goes bogey 16, 17, and that's killer. He saves one of those pars and he's in the playoff essentially. So I feel for him, but also like you said, it's kind of like there was a group of more young emerging stars, at the top of the leaderboard. You still had Scotty and Fitzpatrick and Hideki, and Siwoo. Like, you still had some of the veterans that were like been on tour for a while, but there's a new upcoming emerging group of golfers that are competing week after week, and it's nice to see actually.
Yeah, no, it was definitely a great tournament through and through. Obviously had some hiccups with the like you said with people in attendance, but no, it's still on my bucket list to make it
Yeah.
down there and see here someday. So looking forward to this week here now, but yeah, we're gonna get there someday.
Yeah, I agree. Well, let's get into my golf guy because, it was a lot of fun this week. We had a couple of guys competing this week. Last couple of weeks has been really not so competitive. We either missing the cuts. One of our guys missed the cuts. One of the guys make it. This week was very tight for us. I had Maverick McNeely. You had Michael Kim. Michael Kim at the 11,000 to plus 11,000 odds. Really put out a pretty good tournament there.
Yeah, I should be getting a few extra strokes, taking a guy that deep down when it comes to his odds to win compared to yours. But I'll give credit where it's due. You got the W this week with Maverick McNeely. Sunday, I really thought that Michael Kim was gonna beat your guy. He was playing fairly well. Michael shot -4 Sunday, and Maverick was struggling quite a bit until a few birdies on the back nine. Ended up Yeah, he ended up getting me by a stroke or two there, but it was definitely one of our closer matchups so far this year.
Yeah, I mean, Maverick had 5 bogeys in the first 11 holes. He was +3. And at that point, Michael Kim and Maverick, they were tied before he hit his last 2 birdies into the final stretch of holes there. They were both sitting at -9. And I'm pretty sure Kim was in the clubhouse at that point because he
Mhm.
fired off a pretty nice round. He was further back. And I was just like, here comes another collapse. Remember 2 weeks ago, our Pustin and foul
Yeah.
was day and Pustin shot a plus. I was like, great, I'm gonna do it again. I'm gonna shoot plus on the final day. Your guy's gonna come with a nice minus, and I'm gonna take another loss. But luckily, I gave Maverick a call on the golf course, and I told him to pick it up, and
Little pep
and he
talk,
did.
got him
Yeah.
going. Yeah.
But no, it was good for these two guys. We both put guys in the top 20 this week or last week that just passed. Yeah, you did. You went further down the board. The only person who's getting strokes in our matchups is me when I'm on the golf course against you. Okay. I'm not giving you anything anywhere.
I don't know. I saw that the par three challenge you do with yourself at Pebble Beach, and that swing I think is going to be able to compete with me this year. So I'm not sure if I can give you any strokes if you're going to be hitting them into a couple feet on on that par three at Pebble. So we'll
Yeah.
see. We'll see.
You know what? The swing looks good. The body doesn't feel good. That's the problem. So we'll see how the aging body holds up in some of these conditions. But let's talk about our lineups last week because we had more than just my golf guy. We had our DFS lineups for DraftKings. Listen, you got the lead. You beat me, so go ahead and let me see what your lineup was. What was the good and bad things about it?
Yeah, it was nice to bounce back and get back in the winners column against you this week. As we talked about last week, obviously I went with the Scotty Scheffler approach, or forced me to take him, and then a bunch of dart throws at guys that I thought could have a good chance this week. Scotty, obviously, just starting with him, I was very scared after round one. Anytime you're going to take a guy at 14,500, I mean, you need him to be coming, he needs to be a top five finisher in the week. And so after round one, he was in serious, he had a big problem on his hands. Obviously, I thought he was going to miss the cut. I think everyone thought he was in serious trouble. So seeing him come back in round two, firing a 65, getting back into things. He followed that up with a 67 and then a 64 on the final round. He also had two bogey-free rounds in his last 3-2, which got me some extra points. So Scotty pulled his weight. He came through. And the unfortunate thing with my lineup here this week is, Joel Damon missed the cut by a stroke. That hurt me. And then the guys I took dart throws on, Tom Kim, he was 2.7% owned. He finished tied for 35th, which isn't too bad. But SH Kim finishing tied for 53rd at -3 and fired a +1 in round four. That really killed me. The other guys that still performed fairly well for me still, Michael Kim, my guy, person who I was very high on, I thought still was one of the better value plays last week, finishing tied for 18th. I'm happy with that. I mean, he was 2.3% owned that last week. He had solid rounds. Round three is what really hurt him, shooting a 72 in round three, but followed up in round four with minus 467, which again, this is when you're going to take a guy at 7,200. Again, I call it statistical dart throw that I had a good feeling about, but at the same time, and based off his previous performance here, coming runner up last year, I'm happy with his performance. I think it was everyone else. Nick Taylor was supposed to be my like second anchor to Scotty, coming tied for 28th, and really not having great round. He didn't have a great round one or round three. Had a decent round four at 67, and really that's kind of what did it for me. Not having my second guy to Scotty come, have a really good finish, and then Joel Damon missing the cut, and my dart throw guys not having, one of those guys, had they come top 10, it would have been a completely different story. But, it was still enough to get me a win over you with 432.5 points, and continue to, chip away at the lead that you had gained over the last couple weeks there on me.
Yeah, we'll talk about that lead in a second. What I like about your lineup was, that Scotty did perform, right? He got to 3, he got to 3rd, and you just need some of these guys to really step up. And if you look at the top of the leaderboard, you really had to pick the guy.
Yeah.
You had, out of the 5 next guys that you were, under 8,000, there were some guys, but you could pick 5 guys and maybe only 5 guys on the top of that leaderboard that could have got you a win. So it's tough, right? Michael Kim, one of them, very good performance, at 7,200. You're right, Nick Taylor, right? So if you swap out a Nick Taylor for Pearson Cody, at
Yeah.
86, but like when you start to get down to Tom Kim and SH Kim and Damon, you got to be picking Bjornsson, things like this. You gotta hit on those guys, and if you miss one, then that puts you, middle of the pack with everyone else.
And I think this kind of goes to our point that we're talking about. Like when you're picking a Scotty lineup, so much has to go right for you. Like not
Yeah.
only does he have to be the guy to win, but you have to have these dart throws hit for you. And if you don't, you're going to be in trouble. And so I think that's kind of where I used to say, like, I love the more balanced lineup approach, taking a lot, like, less dart throws, more guys who are kind of similar to your lineup, more guys who have a better chance of winning the tournament and having those strong finishes, versus, this type of lineup, which you're always a little bit uneasy about, right?
Yeah, and you know what? And I'll go over my lineup now, and just because I wanted to mention just what you said there, right? So like Maverick puts out a pretty good round. He had the +1 on the final day, which kind of hurt. He could have been more in the, the top 5 if he puts, he had -4, -2, -6, then +1. He puts a round together, and that guy is competing at the top. Could have really saved, my team. Tagala, man, I can't watch this guy play anymore. His tee shots makes me full of anxiety because it's gonna go far and it can go
He was
absolutely
all over the
anywhere.
place this week. Yeah.
And so it's just like, I might be, he didn't perform poorly, but I might be benching this guy for a while after watching that. Just full of anxiety. I don't want to watch him play anymore.
I remember you
But
texting me saying that over the weekend. You're like, I can't watch this guy. Like it's very high stress watching this guy hit tee shots.
Well, I mean, there was a stretch there in the first round where he bombs one out there, drops an eagle, and then bogeys the next 2 holes. And I'm just like, what happened here? Like,
Yeah.
he was on the way up and he comes crashing down, and I had to stop watching him. I couldn't do it. It was so stressful because I'm crossing my fingers that it goes straight. Whatever he's hitting goes straight. But you know what? He had a pretty solid performance. Remember, I was looking at Tagala or Kepka, my
Right.
picks. And I easily picked right. Brooks, kind of faded out there in the tournament. But my most disappointing thing was probably Jordan Spieth. He typically does very well at this tournament. We talked about it in the last 4 years. He has four of the last 5 years, top 10s, 2 of the last 5, top 5s. But, it was from the 18th hole day 1 and on. He doubles the 18th hole day 1 after being -3. And then it carried over into his Friday. And he, shoots +4. And that was it.
Yeah.
That kind of, I kind of got discouraged, trying to follow my lineup after that. I didn't really have much of a hope. But good picks
I
on
was
Pierce.
watching him on Friday afternoon, and I was following his group, and I forget what hole it was. It was 9 or 10. I think at that time he was like -1 or -2, and he had a shot that he had hit out of the bunker, and he chose to go to the left of the flag, quite far left, and ended up hitting it over the green. He made the safe play, hit it over the green into an area where nobody has got up and down from ever. Uh, and he also didn't end up getting up and down from there, and also made another double bogey on that hole, which I think that ultimately that one hole again, I can't remember exactly which hole it was. I thought it was 9 or 10. Sealed his fate. Like that was it. At that point, he just was never able to recover, which was unfortunate because I really liked him this week or
Yeah.
last week.
And so, he was similar price to like a Goddard up, right?
Yeah.
Like I could have gone that way and, changed my whole thing. So it's like the balanced lineup wasn't a bad play. It was just I relied too much on Jordan Spieth and Corey Connors. Obviously Corey Connors a little further down. The upgrades would have been a little bit more tough to get from his pay range there.
Mhm.
But I didn't get the right mix. And if I would have, it could have looked a lot different. So I still think that the balanced play is the play. You have many more options to choose from of guys who are going to likely perform better. And I think it proved this week when you look at that leaderboard, there was a lot of mid-tier guys from a DraftKings perspective that you could have had in your lineup to put out a solid performance. And I just didn't get the right guys this week. So you got me by a few. And it's not too bad. I still have the overall lead by about 70 points, 68, I think it is. But that Aaron Rye at the Farmers Insurance, that's going to be something we might come down to the end of the year, and that could be the difference maker in our scores because no one's really running away with it at the moment.
That's it. I mean, if he would have just got me 20 or 30 more points, I could have digested that and been okay with it. But if it comes down to you beating me by 20 or 30, yeah, that's going to be a tough one to swallow for sure.
Yeah. But let's get into this week's event. We got the Pebble Beach Golf Tournament, the AT&T Pebble Beach. One of my favorite courses, and I think it should be anybody's favorite course. It is such a fun course to watch. It has great views. It has some of the most complete golfing on tour, right? It doesn't just pick the guy who hits the farthest. It doesn't pick the guy with necessarily the best irons or the best putting. This tests your entire golf game, and I absolutely love it. On top of that, it is a beautiful golf course. So let's go through some of the things that are happening. And obviously, you're going to mention it, but, not just playing at Pebble Beach today, right? They also got Spyglass Hill, but let's go through some of those course stats, what we can expect through some of these two courses we're going to see Thursday, Friday, and then into Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah. So obviously, talk about the past winner here, Aurora McIlroy last year, minus 21. It's another one of those events where they're playing two different courses, which is a common trend every year at the start of the year. So it's going to be something to keep an eye on, weather at both courses, which guys are playing there, etc. But Pebble Beach Golf Links obviously is the host course here. It's used for 3 of the rounds. So one of the first 2, and then Saturday, Sunday round. Spyglass Hill obviously is the other round that players will be playing, or the other course that players will be playing at. Interesting thing here, obviously there's no cut. It's a smaller field, so we have 80 players. This is great for DFS lineups. You really feel like you're in it the whole weekend. Other lineups you'll play, you'll have people get cut. You really kind of put yourself out of it on the weekend, but you could have guys who just aren't performing day 1 and 2 and then light it up day 3 and 4, right? So it's going to keep you in it for the whole weekend, which is nice from a DFS perspective. But going into some of the courses, Pebble Beach, some of the basic course info here, it's a par 72. Typical PGA setup. It's usually one of the shortest courses on tour, depending on how they have it set up, playing anywhere between 6,800 to 7,000 yards. It's got 4 par 3s, 10 par 4s, and 4 par 5s. It's par 36, both in the front and back. It's really that, like you mentioned already, that coastal link style conditions that you're going to get here because it's located directly on the Pacific Ocean. Wind's going to impact scoring here. Weather's going to impact scoring. It could swing either way. This could either turn into a birdie fest in calm conditions, or it could be an extreme grind heavy couple days here where we're seeing guys struggle to break par, right? So it's the typical winning score here. We see anywhere between minus 18 to minus 21 under normal conditions. It can fluctuate quite a bit depending on the weather here. So it's a course that players can really get at because of the short yardage, the reachable par 5s, and several short par 4s. But the difficulty again is going to depend on the weather here. And one notable hole to mention is from a difficulty perspective is the par 5 14th. It's historically the most difficult to hit in regulation. Plays at about 590 yards. It currently ranks second toughest. It's the second toughest par five green to hit in regulation. So we're not even talking about going for two. This is in regulation on in three. Guys are only hitting it about 55% of the time. And this hole is just so long. It's got a lot of trouble. It's a double dog leg. Guys are often having to lay up. And because these greens are so small, which is something we're going to talk about in a second too, guys just aren't able to hit this green with a wedge. It's pretty wild. And it's going to be an interesting hole to watch down the stretch, especially coming into Sunday and how guys are playing it.
Yeah, so,
Um,
it's the interesting thing about, too, the setup of the course from the back nine to the front nine to the back nine is the front nine typically plays a lot easier. You mentioned the
mm,
par fives, and the par five on the back nine hard to reach in two. Then you got the 18th hole where you got water along the whole left side, right, which is dangerous anytime a missed shot is hit. But the two par fives on the front nine are typically the easiest holes on the golf course. They play a little bit shorter and they're reachable in two and stuff like that. And even the par fours on the front nine are typically shorter. But this course does have a lot of challenges. Bunkers around the green. You got, yeah, some short par fours, but they're dog legs. So, like, they're not even reachable, let's say. Like I mentioned, it's full of interesting plays. And, let's just say Takala is not going to be in my lineup today after the way he hit the ball.
yeah, and I mean, and just to add to that, I mean, the average green depth size is 26 paces. That compared to the last 2 weeks, where we were talking about large receptive greens, I mean, it's tough. You can put yourself in a lot of really good scoring positions here, and if your iron play, your approach play is not at an elite level coming into this week, like you're not going to be hitting greens. It's especially like I mentioned, if the wind picks up, it just makes it that much more difficult here. So it's a very good test for players around the green, that's for sure.
Yeah. What about Spyglass? What can we expect? We won't get too much into Spyglass because there's just the one round. But remember when we were talking about Torrey Pines, north and south? There was a huge difference and such an advantage on the north course. Are we looking at something like that? That's that drastic of a change between Pebble and Spyglass?
It's definitely a tougher test and plays a little bit I believe a stroke or two more difficult than Pebble does. So it's going to be similar. It's quite a different layout, right? We're talking there's a lot more tree line sections. It's longer at just around 70, 100 yards, depending on how they have it set up. It just gives the players a lot different look, and it's still going to be impacted by the weather conditions, but maybe not as drastically as Pebble is. And so, yeah, it's going to play a little bit more difficult. Give the players a different, definitely something to keep an eye on when it comes to weather still. But it's definitely different than Pebble for sure, and a few strokes more difficult.
Yeah, and just quickly about weather before we get into the details of what stats we were looking at. We took a look before the show just to see like how the weather's going to impact, and Thursday, Friday, Saturday, all very similar conditions. It's raining Wednesday, which should soften up the course, but throughout the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, it's going to get a lot quicker, likely moving into the Saturday round. Wind will play a factor. It's going to be windy each of the 3 days. Saturday is probably going to be the best conditions for golf. And then Sunday, it feels and looks like there's going to be like torrential downpour Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. And I joked before, I'm like, we may not even get the final round into this tournament. Like,
Yeah.
and what'd you say? You said we played 2 rounds on Saturday
Well,
just to,
either you make it kind of a live style event and play 2 or 3 rounds, or you try to get the guys to play 36 holes Saturday, get the whole weekend in on Saturday, because like what you mentioned, this weather, it doesn't seem like it's going to get better until mid to end of next week.
yeah.
So if you have to delay Sunday, like you're not playing again. If we're talking 35, 40 millimeters of rain for 3-4 days straight, like that course is going to be unplayable for at least a week afterwards, right? Especially since it's cooler conditions. We're talking,
Yep.
15, 16 degrees each day. This place isn't going to dry up that quickly. And I would be surprised if they don't get it in Saturday. I'd be surprised if they don't just call it, or how they finish this, because that'll be one interesting key point to look at here this weekend.
Yeah, for golf fans, I don't know if you should be like thinking like, oh, I'm going to sit on the couch Sunday and watch the final round of Pebble Beach. I'm not thinking it might even actually happen. And the golfers and the event itself are probably going to already have this discussion where they play extra holes throughout the weekend, right? Because there's no cut. So it's not like you have to wait to regroup and stuff like that. Yeah, sure, Saturday, Sunday, you want the leaders in the same group, but this might be a little bit different of an event where, you try to squeeze it in 3 days, or they tell the guys like, hey, you might be done after 3 rounds, so don't be saving anything for Sunday. Go after and try to get that lead after 3, and maybe we don't play 4, but the golfers are going to know this going into the
Yeah.
tournament for sure.
Yeah, and we still have, 4 days or so where the weather could shift a little bit. It's looking pretty gloomy right now, but, yeah, we'll see as we'll keep it. It's definitely something to keep an eye on here over the next couple days for sure.
Yeah. So a couple of things to watch for. Number one stat, is the strokes gained on approach. We talked about the small greens, the bunkers around the greens. Every hole has bunkers surrounding these greens, and some of them are very tough. We talked about 14, big bunker right in front, one of the hardest greens in regulation to hit on tour. You got the 17th hole, you got bunkers surrounding a very narrow green. Like, you pick the hole and there's bunkers all around it, right? So very challenging, small greens to hit. And when you add in the wind factor that's likely going to happen, these are going to be such tough greens to hit that your strokes gain on approach, you must be elite in order to try to score. Because then, and I'll actually skip to the last point, then it falls into the scrambling mode, right? And the guys who can scramble best from around the greens are guys that are going to essentially be saving par. And at this point, we talked about the scoring being, anywhere from -18 to -21 in in normal or preferred conditions. I don't think we get that this weekend. I think the winds are going to be up. When we get later on, the rain and stuff like that, we may not even play that. It's a little colder, right? You got not as warm weather as it normally is here. So if you're coming out of this tournament and you're finishing around at -2 to -4, and you can come in at the finish of the tournament if we get all 4 rounds in at -12, 13, I think that's going to be the winning score this week. So scrambling and saving pars on holes where you don't hit that green is going to be probably very, very crucial in order to try not to get a high, like a balloon, a number on a specific hole, and then kind of eat up your tournament. Like we talked about Spieth last tournament, right? Couple ballooned holes, and there he was out of contention. And the last stat, kind of interesting, and because of the, proximity to the hole, you want to be how tight those greens are. You kind of have to not necessarily go for pins, but when you land on that green, you're probably going to be relatively close, or more close than some of the other tournaments we've been watching, right? And because the course isn't long, what you'll notice is that there's going to be a lot more wedge play. Players are going to be a lot closer to the hole. We picked that 125 range. About 40% of the shots last year were between 100 and 150 yard on approach shots. That is way above tour average. Typically, you're in the 25% range, if not a little bit lower from this particular distance. So a lot of holes, they don't have, they may read 420, which is like, oh, that's going to be easy. The thing is, you can't hit driver 280, 300 yards down these fairways because they end, right? Or there's blind shots, or there's dog legs. Like, this is more of a precision game, and you'll see a lot of tight wedge shots. Watch some of the elite iron players, and Wendell, every single week, you call Hideki Matsuyama, a masterful wedge player, masterful iron player. And you know what? And it might be a situation where his game might play best here if he can hit the driver well, or even be off the tee, because it doesn't even necessarily we're going to be hitting driver off the tee every single time. So a lot of fun key stats here. As much as we always looked at strokes gained, but also the best all-around golfers are going to win this tournament, and especially on the approach game and in the around the greens when you're not on the greens. So something to really, I think, focus on in this weekend's tournament.
Yeah, you're going to see I'm going to be on Hideki again here this week, as I am every week. He's somebody who's always up there on my list because of how masterful he is with that iron game, and he puts himself in a lot of positions to win. I think this week too, he's not going to have guys yelling in his backswing, so it's just even that much better for him. But no,
Might
I
be an
agree.
advantage for him at this point.
I think so.
Yeah. So let's first get into my golf guy. Who we got this week? Again, just for the fans to remember, is we try to avoid, let's say, the top 10 top odds, for the tournament in my golf guy. We try to give you somebody that's a little bit lower down and someone that has the potential to be in the top 10 or potentially win the tournament, but not be the complete favorites like you'll get, or else we just be picking Scotty every week. So let's get into my golf guy. Tell me who you got this week.
Well, I took all your advice from last week because you were so high on this guy. And I think your exact words were, I will never pick him again. And I went ahead and picked him this week. It's Ludwig Auberge he's listen, I understand the reasons why you didn't like him, or, he's put a sour taste in your mouth. He hasn't had a strong start to the year. He really hasn't. My whole theory here is like, he's such an elite, up iron player, and around the greens he's so good. I think the guy's got such a good skill set that it's going to come around from at some point. So why not this week? He finished second here in 2024 with due to illness last year. And again, like, his start to the season has been poor due to him being one of the better iron strikers of the game. I like a rebound performance from Ludwig this week. Just looking at some of his key stats, like we had talked about, strokes gained approach, he's, typically in the top 75 around the greens, not the greatest, which is last year I think he was around 100th. Putting also not the greatest, around 100th, and off the tee he's elite. Especially again, if we're talking guys who approach play, and we're talking just iron play in general, he's gonna have to hit a lot of long irons off tees. He's gonna have to hit a lot of hybrids. I think it's going to be crucial, obviously, to get yourself in play here, to put yourself in a position where you're going to be able to hit a wedge 125 yards. And so I like Ludwig this week as a bounce back week for him to start getting his 2026 season, on the right on the right page here. And again, just kind of loved everything you said about him last week, and really, helped me make my decision this week, because I do like to go against your advice from time to time. So Ludwig's my guy.
Yeah, and if for those of you who didn't hear me, Ludwig is on my bench. He is riding the pine for me after his Torrey Pines performance. And until he can prove that he is on his game for a stretch of time, he's going to be on the bench for me. I hope he does well for you, but I have no faith in this person at the moment.
Listen, you didn't have any faith in Ricky Fowler either, and we saw what happened there. So we're
that's going to be your new way. You're just going to take the guy that I'm shitting on. Next week, you're going to pick Sehit Tagala because I can't watch him, and you're just going to pick him.
it is, we're trending in that direction for sure.
Well, you know what? I also, stayed in the plus, you had plus 4,000. I went plus 3,000, got a little bit higher up on the odds list. Russell Henley. I picked Russell Henley in my DFS in week 1, and it didn't turn out so well. But his game is slowly improving as the season goes on. And I mean, this is a top edge player. This Russell Henley is a great, fantastic player, and he hasn't performed like super, super well this year. But he has some of the best stats for this course, I believe. With this year's stats, strokes gained on approach, he's 5th on tour. And I said he hasn't even had spectacular performances this year, and he's still 5th on tour strokes gained on approach. And he ranks in the top 30 on scrambling, and I picked driving accuracy, right? And this one's a little skewed because not everybody's going to be hitting the driver off the tee necessarily, but it is a situation where off the tee you have to be accurate, and this guy ranks very well. And then I looked at the approach, the 125-yard range, and he's top 15, right? So I really like his golf game. And on top of that, he finished 5th here last year. So he knows the course. The year before he finished 58th. He made the cut and didn't perform super well. He's gained that experience, showed that he can learn from it, and goes out and gets into the top 5. I think this week as well, he can fire off a top 5, top 10 performance, if not win this event. If he just holds true to his game, puts it clean off the tee, gets that nice approach in, and let his putting do the work. He's not the greatest putter on tour, but he's also not the worst. So he can definitely roll in some birdie putts. And We'll see if he can perform the way I think he's going to perform. Hopefully, obviously I'm going to show you that I put him in my DFS lineup, and he didn't perform too well for me week 1 when I put him in there. But he's off the bench for me. I still have belief in Russell Henley.
I was just about to say, one more bad performance, you're going to put him on your bench, and I'm going to put him into my lineup. So we'll see. I like Russell too, and I think we both kind of showed something here. We both took guys who have proven top 5 results at this tournament in the past, recent ones too,
Yeah.
in the last 2-3 years here. So they, obviously, knowing this course and having played here is gonna matter, and it's I think they're both very good picks. Even though you don't like Ludwig, I still think he's a little bit of a risky pick, but I think he's going to come through here this week for me, and looking forward to seeing how it all plays out.
Yeah, no, good luck with that. So as we get into our DFS lineups, I kind of want to, ask you the question, even ask myself the question. Just quickly looking at the top end of our lineups, we didn't take the top 4 guys in DFS. Okay. We left them off the list. Let's just quickly go over, one by one, those 4 guys and why we left them off the list. Because other than Scotty, some of those guys don't have outrageous price tags, and we could have put them in, but we decided not to. I want you to start with Scotty. Like, why you went with the Scotty lineup last week? You touched on it again, the balance that you kind of like more than the skewed heavy price tag on Scotty. Is that what you're thinking this week? Can Scotty be that much better than everyone else that some people may want to put him in their lineups?
Yeah, I mean, my biggest decision on leaving him out this week, he was a little bit cheaper. He's $500 cheaper this week. I think obviously it goes to show just the field and how competitive it's going to be this week with a lot of great players playing. I just, again, didn't want to I really wanted to get back to my more balanced approach. I didn't want to go and have to take guys like, I'd be dipping into like, Mackenzie Hughes, Tony Finau, I'm looking at guys in kind of the mid to high 6s, low 7s here. There's still great ones, right? I mean, we got Corey Connors, Aaron Rai, who kind of obviously did me dirty a few weeks back, withdrawing early. And so for me, it was less about, I think I'd easily could have put together a good lineup with some of those guys who are more long shots, because again, this whole field is elite this week. But I really wanted to get back to a more balanced approach. And that's really why I left Scotty out. Rory, and I'll just touch on these guys quickly and then let you kind of give me your reasons. Rory hasn't played yet. Obviously, he's a past winner here, 11,500. I don't think he's overpriced, but I didn't like the fact that he hasn't played really much at all leading up to this. Obviously, he's played, but just not in an actual PGA event. So I didn't really want to take a shot on a guy who hasn't played yet this year. Like him this week, and he's well priced, but wanted to kind of keep him off my lineup. The same goes with Tommy Fleetwood. I think he's one of the best iron strikers out there, and I think his game is really good for this course. But again, hasn't played. Don't really want to take another flyer on a guy who hasn't played at the top of my lineup. Really wanted to kind of go with guys who are proven, who are trending in the right direction, who have had success already this year, and their games are in prime form. Because we know, we've seen it in recent years with Scotty. It's taken him a couple rounds, a couple tournaments to get, to that Scotty level. And it wouldn't surprise me if it took Rory a few to do the same thing. So
Yeah.
that's why I left some of those guys off this week.
I agree with Rory too. Not playing an event yet. And the one thing with him is, as much as he's the past winner, this course doesn't set up well for him, I don't think. But he is elite, and he can work his way around a golf course better than anybody. But I think Rory's strong game is where he can pump it down the fairway, give him closer iron shots than everyone else in the field, and knock it close and hit a few putts. And I think more of his game has to be on for him to win this event, and it was last year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see a repeat performance coming from him, because I don't think this course sets up well for him. I don't think he can have the ability to put himself in a different class of I got my ball further down the fairway, I put myself in a better position than you. Everybody's going to be in a similar position, and I think that brings the field closer to him. And that's why I'm not going to be betting on Rory. And that was the toughest one, because like defending champion, of course I'm going to put some money on him potentially. I'm going to fade Rory right now, because I think there's other lineups that set up much better than a Rory lineup. So what came you to the conclusion that you had with yours?
Yeah, I definitely like my lineup here. Again, went with a much more balanced approach. The lineup I ended up kind of finalizing here was one that was, again, it was more top heavy still. I mean, I still took three guys that were 9,500 or above. I took another guy at 80, one at 83, and then two in the low to mid sixes. So I still had to take a few shots here with some guys, but the shots I had to take, these were guys that I really identified as um, value plays, guys who I thought were much more lower priced than they should have been, who have performed well here or fairly well in the past, and that I actually really liked, and that I thought could have easily been guys in the 7,000. So, kind of going through it here, went with Siwoo Kim as my top pick at 9,800. A lot of good things to talk about Siwoo. There's so many you can pick at. He was 12th here last year, 14th year previous. The game's trending in the right direction. Tied for third last year at Waste Management Open. Tied for second at Farmers. Tied for sixth in American Express. I mean,
Yeah.
at 9,800, I mean, that seems like a steal to me. He should have been like at that, how he's performing and how he's performed here in the past. He's a 10,000 plus player all day. So give me shave the couple extra hundred off. Give me him as my number one pick all day long. He's very strong approach. His short game fits Pebble. His putter is volatile, and it's going to be the factor here for him. If it's on, I think he's going to have a great week. I mean, stroke gain approach. Last year he's in the top 30. Around the green, he was 11th. Putting 157th, and that's where this is going to be the decision maker. And off the tee, he was 34. So his game is so well structured for Pebble if his putter is on, and his previous experience there and how he's performed as well as how he started doing this year. I mean, I couldn't leave him off my lineup. I love Siwoo, and I think he's a very safe play, and he's one of the better picks in that top tier. After Siwoo, went with another guy that I've been talking about week after week after week here, Hideki Matsuyama, 9,600. Again, I thought he easily could have been another guy they put at 10,000 plus. So I thought there's some value here. Last year, he hasn't had the best experience or performances here at Pebble. Tied for 48th last year, tied for 54th the year before. But given his recent play and him being under 10K again, he's just another guy I wanted in my lineup. Tied for second last week, tied for 11th at the Farmers, tied for 13th at Sony. Again, you can kind of see a trend here. Guys leading up to this tournament, I wanted guys who were in good form, who are hitting the ball well, who are great approach players. That last year he was 12th on tour. Around the greens he was 5th. I mean, those are two of the biggest metrics I'm looking at when I'm looking at guys here. And his game, elite iron play, elite short game, that's equals the perfect Pebble Beach skill profile for me. So give me Hideki at under 10K all day. I'll take him every time in my lineup, especially at a course like this that favors his style. Third, I went with another guy, so I'm in the 9,000 still. So again, a very top heavy lineup here with Justin Rose. His game statistically, if we're talking about strokes gained, doesn't really line up very well here. But look at his previous performance here. He was tied for third last year, tied for 11th in 2024, won here in 2023, and he's had a good start to this year winning the Farmers. So it's like, okay, you're giving me another guy at 9,400 with an amazing track record at this event, and his game is in great form to start this year. Again, sign me up all day. Again, if we're talking about some of the like we're talking strokes game statistics, like you'd probably leave him off your lineup here this week. But if you look at past experience, you want him in there. I mean, strokes gained approach last year, he was I think he was top 85 on tour, 41st and around the green. Again, that's not ideal here. Putting 73rd off the tee, he was 128th. So all of those equal probably not the right guy here if you're just looking at the stats. But I had to get rid of the stats, look at the performance, look at how he's been doing this year too. And again, some of his recent performances here, and he's another guy that I really like this week. And then from after Justin, I kind of dropped down now into the 8,000s. I have to really start balancing my lineup out. And even before I jumped down to the 8,000s, I took a jump down into the sixes to try to look at some guys who I thought were value plays. This one guy I spoke about last week, again, I'll talk about him quite a bit because I like him this year, and DraftKings continuously has him undervalued. I don't know why he is always under 7,000 with the game that he's got and his and some of his recent performances. But Michael Kim, again, I'll put him in my lineup again, under 7,000. I think he's one of the better value plays this week. Again, a guy I was on last week. He's somebody here. He finished last week tied for 18th at the Waste Management Phoenix Open. He was cut at this tournament 2 years ago when he played last. And up until then, I don't believe he's played, or I couldn't see in the last 5 years what his statistics were or his finishes were there. But so it's not ideal from an experience standpoint on this course. But then I'm looking at, again, now from a statistics standpoint, how he did and what his strengths are in his game. So, his short iron and wedge distances, he's very strong, which, again, we've talked about common approaches here inside 150 yards. You're going to need that. He's very good. He typically tends to do very well on positional courses rather than bomber tracks. And again, that's another thing here. We look at his stats last year, strokes gain approach. He was in the top 25 on tour. Around the greens, he was in the top 15. Putting, he was in the top 80. And then we look at off the tee, top 75 guys. All of these things. So some of his elite, play, obviously an approach around the green. Again, you're kind of seeing if I'm taking a guy under 7,000, I want that. And so Michael Kim, given, his play last week, given his strong approach and around the green play, I think, he's a great play here at under 7K. If his putter's on, he's going to be very dangerous because this can be a very birdie friendly environment, and he's going to put himself in position to score. So really liked Michael Kim. And then after I took Michael Kim, I went back up and tried to build up my lineup, and that's where I identified my guy. Ludwig Auberge. I saw him and I was like, Ryan hates him. I have to have him. So a couple of things about Ludwig, obviously looking into how his previous performances were here, finished second in 2024, withdrew to illness last year. His start to the season, again, like I mentioned before, has been poor, but he's one of the better approach and iron strikers, I feel like, in the game. And I really like him to rebound this week. He's elite tee to green. That's been his reputation. His 25 numbers, he's been inconsistent when it comes to iron play a little bit and his putter, but I like him for a rebound this week. I feel like if a player at his level is playing bad for the first check of the season, he's got to have a week where he's going to perform. And I think at 8,300, he could be a real steal here. Because if we look at the start of the year and he has two good performances, this is a guy that's 9,000 plus all day, right? So I think he's a value play here if he turns it around this week. It's a little bit of a risky play, but again, I like to take a few risks and I like to go against you in a few different areas. I chose this week with him. Ludwig at 8,300 was my next pick there, my fifth guy, and this left me with exactly 6,300. So when you have exactly 6,300, there's not a lot of players to pick from, but one guy jumped out and I couldn't not have him in my lineup. Was Lucas Glover. So Lucas is 6,300 because he hasn't played yet this year. He's also getting into the later stages of his career. But if you look at his stats and his areas of strengths of his game, it lines up so well for Pebble. He was tied for third here last year, 58th the year before. Under 6,500, I feel like that's, huge value here at Lucas. And if you have him in your lineup, you can really make a lot of different lineups because he's a player. If you can identify him as somebody you really like, it's going to allow you to take a lot more of, it allowed me especially to take a lot more guys higher up there in the nines. So his strokes gain approach, 27th on tour last year. Around the greens, he's in the top 70. He was putting in the top 60 and off the tee in the top 50. So iron play remains his biggest strength. Putting historically inconsistent, but not disastrous. And I think given his recent results here at under 6,300, I actually normally feel really uneasy about taking guys in this range, like huge dart throws. I don't feel that way about Lucas Glover. He feels like a guy I'm taking at 8,000 for some reason and feeling pretty good about. And so that's how I loved rounding out my lineup with Lucas. I think it really gives me a pretty good top to bottom balanced lineup this week that I think is going to do really well.
Yeah, I like the 6,300 on Glover. The only flaw that I see essentially is his lack of playing recently.
Yeah.
Not even performance, just playing, period. But a guy who's finished here top 5 in the past at 6,300 and recent past, like last year.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great value pick. I hate the Ludwig pick. I think he's going to play terrible. And Michael Kim, just because I was rooting against him last week so I could beat you, I also don't like that pick. But you know what, though? Both players, they do have the game to set up well for this. And I do think they could do well. I'd be too afraid to take either one of them. But, you nailed it. Like, these guys can perform here. Love the first 3 picks. Fantastic picks. And my lineup could have looked exactly like that because I had those 3 guys on my radar as well. So when we talk about mine, we talk about Justin Rose. That's the highest value I took, and you have him here, and he's your third highest value. So you went a little higher than me with Siwoo and Hideki above Rose in a value play. For me, Justin Rose, he wasn't even the first guy I took, but he is a guy that I really wanted. His play at Torrey Pines and his, in windy conditions, tough track, just where was hitting greens like crazy. And his iron plays isn't always his best game, but he's this year statistically, obviously the wind helps this stat, strokes gained approach. He's top 5, right? And his wedge play is top 20. Right. And if I'm looking for a guy, and we talked about it as being one of the biggest stats, right? Your approach play, and it's going to be a lot of wedge shots. He is fantastic on tour, and he's fantastic this year. Guy with momentum, and you talked about previous performance. Last year finishes 3rd, then the year before 11th, the year before that the winner. I mean, I really liked him, and like I said, he wasn't my first guy because my first guy was Russell Henley. I talked about Henley earlier. I think he has the perfect game for this course. Top 5 stroke gained approach so far this year. Top 5 wedge or top 20 wedge play, just like Justin Rose. But the difference between Henley and Rose, I think Henley has a better game scrambling, and he has a better game off the tee. And that's why I think Henley's going to outdo him. So
Well, and
when
it's
I was
interesting.
comparing stats, yeah.
No, sorry. Yeah, I'll let you finish there.
Oh, when I was comparing the stats, I looked at both players, and I liked Henley more than Rose. But I mean, I think both of them are very comparable players. They have similar makeup potentially, and probably finish, in the top 10, each of them. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, no, and I like them both too, and they're both on my radar. And this just kind of goes to what we were saying earlier about, why we left some of the top 4 guys off of our lineups. It just
Yeah.
it almost seems wild for me not to have, Rosie specifically in my lineup, because I mean, based on previous experience or performances here, as well as his game so far this year, which I didn't talk about his strokes gained this year, it's trending so well in the right direction. It's like this guy's such a value play at 9,400. Like in my mind, like he should be right up there with, like Tommy Fleetwood, or in between Tommy Fleetwood and Rory McIlroy at, somewhere in the 10, 5, 11 range. I mean, that's really where I think that his value could be at. And so getting a guy at 9,400 that could be in the 10 to 11 range based on previous results here, as well as how his game's been playing this year. I think, I'm not going to say DraftKings makes errors here, but I really like those guys not having played. I think Rosie should be higher, a salary guy. Oh no, great, both of them great picks. I love them both this week.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that. And my next pick, and again, what, these two next guys for me were guys that I saw their stats, I saw their history here, and I was like, I like this a lot. Jason Day, a couple weeks ago, I took my lineup. He played fantastic for me, and his game started to go south last year and the year before a little bit, but he's back. He's on. And he finished 13th here last year, has a 6th place finish here, has a 7th place finish here. His strokes gained approached and his scrambling stats are in the top 10, along with his between 100 and 150 yard approach birdie or better score.
Oh, wow.
Okay. This guy's top 10 in all 3 of those categories. To me, next to Henley, he is the second best statistical player for this course. And he comes in at 8,500. I love that pick. I think he's playing fantastic right now. So recent history at the course, recent history in the past, in the 2026, puts him in that Justin Rose category. You're playing well, you have history here, and you play well here, and you have a fantastic game for this particular course. I'm on this guy very much. Jason Day is, for me, a big time contender that is a lot lower down the list in the odds makers. So I love Jason Day's game here. I think he's going to perform very well. And then Daniel Berger. So this one's fun for me. I like Daniel Berger. Like as a person, as a player, I really like his game. I like a couple years ago, I want to say it was more like 4 or 5 years ago, he was playing lights out. He won this event in 2021. He was number 1 on tour for a period of time in the standings. He had a fantastic game, and then injuries really started to hit this guy. He wasn't playing consistent rounds. Like not even just from round to round in events. It was like he can't even play. He wasn't even playing consistently on tour. And I saw him a couple weeks ago. He looked really good. He has 3 top 20s, I think, this year, or 2 top 20s in the 3 events that he played for. So he's playing more consistently right now. He's playing better golf right now. And this year so far, his stats say that he's actually coming back and playing. So strokes gained approach, top 15. His scrambling's top 30. His off the tee accuracy's top 50. Like, he is a guy that can play well here, has played well here, and now is playing more consistent golf. And I'm a big fan. I think he's going to start to turn some heads again, like he did 4 or 5 years ago when he came out of the gates fast, won the Pebble Beach, and really looked like the next guy on tour to be in that elite category, and it kind of fell off. But I think he's still an elite player. And my last two, these are the scariest picks that I took. And the reason why they're scary for me is we just went through my 4 guys, went through your list about historic at Pebble Beach play and how important that is. Well, Ryan Gerard and Jacob Bridgman have, I think, 0 rounds played at Pebble Beach on the tour. Okay. And so that's what makes them more scary picks. Both of these guys have performed very well in the first 4 weeks of the season. Each of them have top 10 finishes. I think Gerard, I think, has 2 of them. They have top 20 finishes, and every single cut they've made so far this year, their games set up really well for this course. So Bridgman, he is consistent across all categories that I looked at. He has nothing worse than 50th on tour, and he has a couple top 25s, especially his approach game from 100, 150 out. He's a top 25 player, and birdies are better from that range. And so the reason why I thought this stat kind of stood out for me for Bridgman was this is going to be a lot of the approach game this week, and I think it's going to be tough to get birdies. I think the scores are going to be not deep under par. I think he can put consistent rounds together at that -2 to -4 range, which I think puts you in contention come Sunday. And for somebody that I'm taking at 6,900, I think Bridgman is a very good value pick that low. And I think he can, especially with this performance that he's had. Remember, he played at the Sony and played well. The windy conditions, played super well. Played Torrey Pines well. Tough track, tough to hit greens there. So I liked his game and how it rounded out. And then Ryan Gerard, he has a couple of fantastic stats here. Top 15 on strokes gained approach this year and scrambling, right? And for a guy who's playing this tournament for his first time on PG on the tour, not saying he hasn't played this on, with friends in the past. I'm sure he has. But those two, so when your strokes gained approach, you're on, it's going to be good. And when you miss, let's say you do miss, your scrambling's got to be elite. And this guy hits both those stats very well. So he puts, for me, statistically, he's a top 5. His game for this course, for the field that's there today or this week, Ryan Gerard is top 5 player for me, right? The nervous thing that I have about both Gerard and Bridgman is their history at this course is next to nothing, and it's scary. But the way both these players are playing, I'm putting them both in my lineup, and I'm kind of saying that I'm taking them over guys like Taylor Pendrith. Okay, so I had the opportunity to go from Bridgman to Pendrith. I had $500 extra.
I was just about to ask you if that extra 500, if who else was on your radar, but you just answered it.
Pendrith has a 9th place finish here last year. 2 years ago or 3 years ago, he has a 7th place finish. He has great scrambling score, and he's got good approach shots from 100 to 150 yards in. I took him as my golf guy, and he missed the cut on me. Okay. So when I'm looking at it, okay, he has the course history here. So I'm looking at recent events. And if I look at Bridgman and Pendrith, Bridgman is playing better golf right now than Pendrith. Now, Pendrith, he is a long hitter. He crushes the ball off the tee and he gets the ball down the course. Okay. My thing is that this is not the course for him. Sure, he's had previous history here. I don't think this course necessarily always sets up well, especially on the approach game where that's not his strength. And that's why I left him off and I took the inexperience of Bridgman over the experience of Taylor Pendrith.
Yeah, you know what? I just looking at it here, And again, this stat isn't really something I look at too much on DraftKings. I like to look at other things here, but look at their average fantasy points per game too. Getting a guy at 6,900, and he's averaging 97.7
Yeah.
fantasy points per game compared to Pendrith right now, who, he's at 66.5. Isn't it? So like looking now and kind of hearing your reasoning for taking him, I mean, Brisbane seems like a great play. Honestly, I think you've spoken better about Daniel Berger and Jason Day than you're my guy. I think you almost seem like you're higher on them than you were your guy. But
As I was saying, I'm like, I probably should have taken Jason Day as my golf guy actually, and I had him in mind at one point. I just like Russ Henley a lot more, but yeah, I mean, I looked at those guys, and one more guy. If someone's gonna go low and go down the list, is Tom Hoagie.
mm,
I really liked. I don't think his game sets up great for Pebble Beach, but he was T17 last year, T6, 48, first, and 12th. He's had five straight made cuts at Pebble. He has top five a victory, a top 10, and he's got four top 20s in the last 5 years at Pebble. And his best stat at Pebble, his approach game, short iron game into greens, and what he's getting birdies are better. He's top 20 on tour this year. So Tom Hoagie is somebody who I thought I could have put him on there, but I left him off. But I think someone's still to look at, especially if someone's going to go Scotty lineup, and you
mm.
got Hoagie at 6,500. I'd put him in there if I were you, and someone tried to go with that Scotty the focused lineup.
Yeah, no, he's a great pick. He was actually on my radar. If I had $200 more, I did like him. Did like him a lot. I also had, I don't know how to say his last name, but is it Rio Hisastum?
You know what? We'll let you attempt that and not me.
Yeah, I had him on my radar too. He's at 6,800. Just his game in general. Not going to go off of kind of like obviously how his game has been trending this year too. Not going to go off too much of his recent experience or performances at Pebble. Again, all those things. Strokes gained off the tee. Top 60 guy, approach top 50 guy, around the green top 50 guy. At 6,800, I mean, he's got all the elements of somebody too. Who again, I think if you're looking at a Scotty lineup and you're going to have to go into these 6,000 ranges, guys like Lucas Glover, guys like Thomas Hoagie, guys like Rio, like those are the guys you're gonna have to look at to fill out your lineup. Once you take kind of the Scotty and your second anchor and your middle tier guy, you're gonna have to look at these guys. I think those are three great potential options for a Scotty lineup this week. If you feel like you have to have him in your lineup, he's not for me this week, but I think others are gonna might gravitate towards him based off his previous history and last couple rounds he's had.
Yeah, I agree. There are some value picks here, and like you said, no cut this week, so you don't have to worry about your guy bombing out after the second round and putting up zeros for you. There could be some comebacks, especially in DraftKings, with all players left on the board for all four rounds. So it's something to tune into all weekend. There's not a situation where you're gonna be like, I lost two of my guys, I lost one of my guys, I lost three of my guys.
Yeah.
They're all there. They're all going to perform for you. Someone puts out a nice round on Sunday, if it happens, then you could still make a nice comeback and earn some money on DraftKings this week. All right, guys. Well, that's it for the show. I hope you enjoyed everything. We'll come back, talk next week. We'll probably talk more about the guys we just spoke about that are not in our lineups than our actual lineups because those will be the guys who perform. So take note of who we talked about that we didn't put in our lineups because I promise you those are your guys that are going to do better than who we actually took.
There's a high probability. Yeah, best of luck, everyone. And looking forward to seeing how things shake out here this week. Have a great week.
Enjoy, guys.